This Taurus new moon is the landmark. It is the landmark along the way, along the journey, because during marathons, sometimes you do need a little bit of a water break. You need a little quick stop. You need a quick breather. It doesn't mean that you're going to stop forever. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean that you're not still working hard. It means that you're smart because you know when to fucking stop and give your body what it needs, okay? Pushing yourself past your limits is not always the solution. Sometimes we need to pause and we need to recalibrate. We need to pause and correct ourselves, okay? Because, and of course, we're all thinking about our love lives right now with this very Venusian energy. So, of course, star-crossed is what we go to first. This is your last chance to be getting your soulmates charts. I made it very easy for you. Link is in bio. You can find out the month that you'll meet your soulmate, their placements, their Venus sign, their Mars sign, what they might look like. Highly recommend. If your body is screaming at you saying, this fucking hurts, sometimes you do need to just exert your will upon yourself and say, they're there. However, sometimes you do actually need to get more into your body and listen and change your form to accommodate to what your body needs. And so having the discernment is really important. And that's what this Taurus new moon is about. Knowing the cyclical nature of tuning into your body and tuning out and knowing how to do so is very much the embodiment of the Taurus-Scorpio axis. That's what intuition is, the relationship between you and your body. So we understand that Aries is the first sign. Aries is the first breath. Aries is, the transition from the spiritual realm into the material world. And so Taurus is the sign that comes after Aries. And it's when we begin to ask ourselves, okay, what do I need to survive, but also what do I need to enjoy myself, to enjoy the material realm, to be grounded into the material world? Not just what I need to survive, but how do I enjoy? How do I indulge? How do I experience pleasure? Because Taurus is a sign that is ruled by Venus. And so Venus energy is not just concerned about, okay, like this functions. Venus is concerned about, does it function, but also, is it pretty to look at? What is beauty, right? I want to appreciate my own beauty and also the beauty that the world has to offer. Because Aries is just kind of charging forward. Aries is not stopping to smell the roses. Aries wants to get from A to B. Taurus was when we begin to stop and be like, wait, we were running very quickly just now, but we ran past this beautiful tree, this beautiful flower, this beautiful smell. Venus is our senses. It's how we experience sensations, touch, smell, texture, sound, okay? The sound of a voice, the sound of a beautiful song, the sound of a beautiful bird. Certain the colors, pops of color palettes, textures. These are all things that Venusians, Taurus and Libra placements are highly sensitive to and enjoy the curation and the aesthetic of all of these things, right? So Taurus energy is particularly inviting and welcoming. Not only is Venus ruling the sign of Taurus, but Taurus is also the sign of the moon's exaltation. So the moon particularly loves to be in this sign, okay? For, in the sign of Taurus, the moon is a guest of honor. So the moon is obviously associated with what brings us comfort, okay? So it's beyond just what do we find beautiful, what do we find pleasurable, what makes us feel connected and grounded, but the moon energy in Taurus is pointing towards also what brings us comfort, what makes us nostalgic and sentimental, what do we just want to disappear into, and what makes us so comfortable that we just want to fall asleep into a wonderful long nap. What's interesting about Taurus energy is that it's not necessarily an emotionally vulnerable sign, because emotions are fickle and emotions flow like the wind almost, right? They're not reliable. They're very come and go, touch and go, flighty, non-tangible. Taurus likes the tangible. Taurus likes what it can see, because for Taurus, seeing is believing, truly. If it can sense it, see it, touch it, feel it, hear it, Taurus puts its faith into it. Taurus invests into it, right? And so feelings are not tangible. Feelings are not logical. Remember that even though we have the moon influence with Taurus, okay, which I enjoy because there's something about, Taurus is less about our feelings that can come and go at any second. Taurus is more concerned about what really matters to us, what we want to stand 10 toes down on. Because with Aries energy, Aries actually doesn't stand 10 toes down. Aries will stand like 9 toes down, but the commitment of standing 10 toes down, Aries will not. Because Aries doesn't want to fully back something. Aries wants to be able to be like, I don't actually really care about this anymore because I'm bored. Aries needs to be able to pivot and not fully go into something with 100% effort, because Aries wants to be able to save that energy for something else, right? However, Taurus puts 100% of its focus, 100% of their commitment, 100% of their energy and time into what matters to them, right? Even if they're beating a dead horse, Taurus will be there, right? Taurus will remain there. And I think this can come across as stubbornness, but it's really just Taurus deciding. And so really the downfall of Taurus energy is that, of course, we can begin to choose the same thing over and over again, honestly kind of expecting a different result, when in reality, it's not the world that needs to change. It's not other people that needs to change. It's our own choices that need to start changing. It's our own decisions that need to change for us to experience something differently. And so this is when Taurus can kind of get stuck in the muck, because they're so hell-bent on this particular thing working and it has to go this exact way. And sometimes they're not seeing the larger picture at view, okay? Because Taurus is so focused on what is right in front of them rather than the other possibilities that can exist and the other ways that might be, honestly. So right now, I think in your Taurus house, you've experienced a long ending chapter because Uranus has finally left Taurus after many years. And so right now, this new moon is going to absolutely, even though it's a new moon, which technically is supposed to represent a new chapter, right now it's actually going to feel more like the closing of a chapter, more like the closing and ending. So there might be a lot of closure around this new moon. And so with this Taurus new moon energy, we might be coming to some difficult terms about, I was choosing this route, this option, because it was easier. And that's okay to admit, right? This was the easier choice. But I think with that comes what would I necessarily be proud of? If I was watching me, what decisions would I wish I made? And how can I start taking those kinds of actions rather than just pressing the easier button? How can I expand beyond the little zone and circle that I've drawn around myself? How can I kind of open up? Because there's a lot of things you can be doing. How hard could it be? How hard can it be? Instead of saying to yourself, I can't do that because of this, that, and the third, start saying to yourself, how hard can it be? And see what fucking happens, right? And remember with this new moon that you do not need to be a master at every single thing that you pursue, right? A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. That is the full fucking quote, right? And so when very relevant with this new moon because it's ruled by Venus in Gemini, and Mercury in Gemini will be conjoining with Uranus in Gemini. And we also, at the end of the month, have a full moon in Sagittarius. Have the audacity to take yourself less seriously. So this Taurus new moon is about knowing when to pause, knowing when to stop, knowing when to reflect, versus knowing when to push and charge forward and go harder. This Taurus new moon is showing you when you need to apply pressure versus when you need to pump the brakes and stop and surrender. And this is the definition of the Taurus Scorpio energy. At the beginning of this month, we had that Scorpio full moon, and now we are building up to a Taurus new moon on Venus's day this Friday. I know I've talked a lot about star-crossed on here, and I'd love for people to know that this app was literally created by an astrologer. Okay, the calculations are using real astrology. Really excited about because there's a lot of new things coming for this app, and I just love supporting members of this community on here, so let's just keep that in mind. And there's a lot of exciting new things coming to Star-Crossed that I think you guys are really going to love, so just stay tuned. This Taurus new moon is ruled by Venus in Gemini, and we also have Mercury conjoining Uranus in Gemini during this new moon. So this energy can feel contradicting. It can feel like a paradox. It can feel like a conundrum. Because I think every Gemini person, every Gemini placement probably wishes that they could multiply themselves so they could get multiple things done at once. And so they could probably have many different kinds of degrees and many different passion projects that were happening at the exact same time. That is very much the energy of this Taurus new moon with the surrounding astrology, is the kind of almost overwhelming nature that comes with tapping into more of your inner child, tapping into your whimsy, in your play. It's all fun and games until you realize that you are actually bursting with creative energy. When you actually begin to tap into your creative energy, it's like a dam breaks and all hell breaks fucking loose. Because especially if you're someone who hasn't accessed your creative energy, your inner child, for a long time, when that part of you has been so repressed and so suppressed under layers and layers of resistance, you get to a point where it's like, I have all of this energy, I don't know what to do with it. I have so many directions that I want to go into. I have so many things that I feel drawn to. I don't know what direction to go into. I don't know what to do with all of this. And it can feel so overwhelming that you get stuck, that you get paralyzed, that you get scared and intimidated and overstimulated. And so there's a little bit of that energy to this Taurus new moon. There's a little bit of that overstimulation, right? There is the drive, there is the kind of desire that's been already planted. And now there's maybe a pressure for that to start growing, for that to start showing itself, for results, for the outcomes to start coming towards you. And so what's really important to understand is the ebb and flow between applying pressure versus surrender is the Taurus Scorpio axis. This is a very intuitive process, and I compare it to knowing when to tune in and tune out of your body, right? Because when we are too internal, is kind of when we can drive ourselves crazy because we're not present in the moment enough and we're not out in the world living our lives. And it's kind of when you can get yourself tangled in a bit of a knot. But when we are living too externally is when we can kind of lose our identity, lose our sense of purpose or our sense of direction. It's when we almost lose touch with our intuition and we kind of allow other people's energies to define us and other people's expectation. We allow other things to define us rather than knowing who we are and how we fit into all of this, right? So I think it's natural to be in those two different states and kind of go back and forth between them and be comfortable in either of those energies, right? Because sometimes I need time to myself. I need to be in my own energy. I need to be internal to not only reset, but to also, I feel like it's a way for me to kind of tune my instrument, right? And then there's other times where I'm just focused on playing. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what this Taurus new moon is about. It's about kind of like tuning back into yourself. And maybe for some of you that might be a little uncomfortable because you haven't done that in a while. Maybe you're out of practice. And on top of that, I talked about how, a lot of your creative energy might be just splattered everywhere. And the great thing about it is you have material to work with. And right now, all you have to do is kind of fine tune it from there. There's something, and I think with this Taurus new moon, it's definitely going to be breaking down some of our perfectionist tendencies where we really want to only pursue something if we are perfect at it, if we are naturally good at it. Otherwise, we just won't care. We just won't even do it. We won't even try to do it. And so what this Taurus new moon is showing you is that in any situation, you have to try. Even if you are naturally good at it, even if you do have that natural talent or that drive or whatever it may have you, there will have to be times where you have to kind of push through discomfort, where you have to deal with, I don't feel like doing this right now, or I'm feeling off right now, and still choosing to show up and still choosing to do it. It's really just about letting it be done when you've put in like 80% of the effort. And this Taurus new moon is going to tell you, like, you've put enough effort into this area, and the 20%, the universe will take care of. The universe will take care of the rest. You show up with 80% of what you have, let go of everything else. Let go of the perfectionist tendencies. Let the universe take care of the rest. Because what we have to realize is that it's only discipline, rhythm, and structure that builds the path, that clears the path forward. Okay, perfectionist doesn't clear the path forward because it's so focused on removing every single leaf in the way that you are barely making any progress. You are barely moving forward. But the discipline, the rhythm, and the structure is what actually gives you the room and lights up the way. And it's what holds you and carries you when you falter, when you have those days where you're just not feeling 100%. It's the discipline in the rhythm and the structure that will be the arms that lift you up so that you can continue, right? But when you are a perfectionist, it's going to always be 1 step forward, 3 steps back, because you're going to be looping around and around and around, chasing your own fucking tail. So this Taurus new moon is calling for you to potentially start locking into a new routine and structure for the bigger things that you might be asking for, right? The Taurus new moon is saying you need something strong enough to hold all of the new things that are coming in. And so sometimes we think to ourselves, oh, well, I'm being asked to have more responsibility or have more authority or speak up for myself more, or I have to fight harder for this. And we think that means it's not happening. Actually, it just means that it's time for you. The universe is actually simply asking for you to build more strength because you're about to get more in this area, right? And so I think it can be scary, and that's where we self-sabotage, and that's where we can kind of say no before we even know what we're saying no to. We know that Taurus loves things to be easy, breezy, beautiful, but we also have to know that Taurus is the bull. The bull is very strong. The bull it can handle a lot. It's very tough. It's very bulky, broad. So think about that with this Taurus new moon. Okay, do not falter. Do not give up when you are so close. And what makes you strong is building upon your tolerances, building upon your self-limitations, expanding them, right?